welcome back to my channel. I'm looking great, obviously. Today we're going to be continuing with part 3 of my foundation series, which is basically where I go through my entire foundation collection, retry all the foundations, give you my thoughts and my opinions on them, do a wear test, and then tell you if I'm going to keep them or get rid of them or not. We will be continuing that today. I'm doing like 10 per video. So we are going to be starting with the Kiko Full Coverage 2-in-1 foundation and concealer, which I bought this year, bought in January this year. I'm definitely not going to get rid of this one because I really like this one. I did include it in my mid-year makeup favourites this year. It's really nice, it's got really good coverage, looks really nice on the skin. From my memory it wears well, but we will for sure get to the bottom of that one today, about how exactly it does wear, but I'm pretty sure it wears like decently. Probably not the best wearing one ever. One issue of this is that it is too dark for me. Fantastic. And because it's got a doe foot applicator, that makes mixing a bit harder. That's what the applicator looks like. Giant doe foot. Did I say what the shade was? The shade is Warm Rose 01. They did add some shades recently, but they didn't add anything lighter. So I still wouldn't have a shade, which is a bit annoying. What I'm basically going to do is dab it all around the face and the doe foot, and then just put some white foundation over the top and then blend it all in together. It's just very orangey. I don't know if you can see that. It's just white orange. Even though Kiko I think is considered like drugstore, this is quite expensive. I think it's about like £15 or something. Possibly a bit more than that. I don't know. It might actually be in the £20 range. I can't remember. I need to check it. So it's not super duper cheap, but it's obviously cheaper than like a high-end foundation like Estee Lauder or something like that. Right, so I've got it all over my face, and I'm just getting my Gosh Mix and Fix drops, and I'm just gonna like sort of finger it. No, why did you say that? Basically all on my face, so hopefully it blends out to something a little bit lighter. We'll see about that. Might have to add some more. Let's go. Okay, let's just pretend that I put a civilized amount on my face and didn't put way too much on. Yeah, it's got really nice coverage. It kind of, I'd say like a high medium, low full coverage. It looks pretty smooth in the face. I feel like it looks better when I don't put as much on. I went a bit mad here. I don't know what's wrong with me. I definitely would say it's actually more of a dewy foundation. I mean, I don't know if the fact that I put too much on has made it look more dewy than it is, but I feel like you can definitely see like that there's some like kind of radiance there. It's definitely not matte at all, which normally like full coverage foundations I feel like tend to be more on the matte side, but this one isn't. So I feel like it's looking a bit heavy, but literally I swear it doesn't look heavy. It's just because I put like way too much on. I don't know what happened, and also the colour still looks a bit off because this has gone well. I'm starting off great. I'm being so competent today. I love it. Anyway, we'll get closer. I mean, I feel like it looks pretty smooth up there. Again, it looks a little bit heavy because I put too much on. I don't have time to take this off and put it on again, so we're just gonna have to deal with it looking a bit heavy, but it looks pretty smooth. Obviously, it does sit my pores a bit. As I've said in all the other videos, all foundations sit in my pores. Some worse than others. I don't feel like it does it especially bad. I feel like overall it looks pretty smooth, pretty buttery on my face. Doesn't cling weirdly to any areas. Doesn't sit in my lines too badly, slightly, not too badly. Gonna go finish off my makeup now. Makeup stand, I used the Fenty Beauty concealer and the setting powder in lavender, and yeah, here's how we're looking. Looks not bad, bit heavy, but as I said, I put too much on. So we'll be back like 12,000 hours later to see how this is looking on my face. Is it still there? Is it gone? Who knows? We'll find out. See you for that. So it's like 9 hours, a bit over 9 hours later. I think that this is worn like decently. It's certainly not a bad wearing foundation. I don't feel like it's the best out of all the ones we've tried so far. I would say from like part 1 and 2, the best ones have definitely been the L'Oreal Infallible in part 1 and the W7 photo shoot in part 2. I feel like those were the real like top tier wearing foundations so far in this series, and I wouldn't quite put this on that level, but I certainly think it's not bad. So if you look at my forehead, I definitely noticing a lot of like kind of, you know, texturization, a tiny bit of breakage between the brows. There is a little bit of breakage. It's nothing too severe though. I would certainly say that we've found some worse wearing ones on my forehead from part 1 and 2. If this is the first video of mine you're watching, foundation doesn't wear on my nose. I touch my nose all the time. It's constantly irritated. I have to just keep rubbing it. So my nose, like the bottom part of my nose, and just kind of let these little bits around it, my upper lip, bit where my pores are, that bit always breaks down, so you just ignore that when I do my wear tests. Definitely quite a bit of separation and breakage on my chin. It's not held up the best there. Yeah, it's definitely not the best chin wear, but these outer parts of my face, as always, are looking fine. Even the worst wearing foundations tend to look fine on the outer parts of my face. So I'm not like super blown away by the wear, but I don't think it's bad. So I feel like I'm leaning towards giving it like a 6.5 for wear. So for coverage, I think I'm going to give it an 8. Yeah, for coverage, I think I'm going to give it an 8. For finish, I think I'll give it a 7. And then for wear, I think I will give it a 6.5. I do like this foundation. It's one of the better ones that I found this year, but overall I don't feel like it's like an ultimate favourite. Best foundation that I found this year is definitely still L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear. I just love that so much. It's just good in every department. It's just but this is a good one that I have found this year. I just like how it looks. I think it's got really good coverage. The wear's not bad. It's not the best wear, if I'm being completely honest. My face doesn't look like a train wreck or anything though, so I'm happy about that. Not great wear, not terrible wear. I'd say like a little bit above average, hence why I've given it a 6.5. Also, if this is the first video you're watching in this series, I do often change my mind when I'm editing my ratings, but I will put like a big thing right at the end of the video that will have all of my little rankings listed. So I might change my mind on some things when I'm like watching the footage back and comparing all the foundations side by side. I might like be like, you gave that one this rating and you gave that one this rating. I don't think so, girl, and change it. You know, that's my thoughts on the Kiko foundation. It's a nice foundation. I still think it is a little bit overpriced considering it is more of a drugstore foundation, but if you're looking for some coverage, then yeah, it's a nice foundation. Is it anything revolutionary? No, not really, no, but it's a nice foundation. I like it. Right, so the next foundation that we are doing is the Maybelline SuperStay 24-hour full coverage foundation, and this is a favorite for a lot of people. I also quite like it myself. This is very old now. I could use a new one, coming up to like 2 years old, I think. See, I'm holding out because I really want them to improve the shade range, because I think this is the lightest shade. It's true ivory, and I still have to put a bit of white mixer with this because it does oxidize. And the thing is, this is their most popular foundation, like, isn't it? And like the Maybelline Fit Me has like a pretty decent shade range, I think. And this, I mean, this isn't like a completely naff shade range, but it definitely could use improvements. So I don't understand why the Maybelline Fit Me has a great shade range, but this one doesn't, because this one is definitely the more popular foundation. But I'm hoping like they do expand it eventually, because if they do, I would repurchase this in a lighter shade. I mean, I definitely did use this a lot around the time that I had it, but I've not used it a lot recently. But I do remember really liking this. It's definitely got great coverage, wear and finish, so let's hope it performs today. So I am going to add a little bit of the Gosh Mix and Fix colour drops with this. So there we go, that is our colour. Alright, let's pop this on. Okay, we've put it on. It has got really good coverage, I can't deny it. It looks pretty nice on the skin. It's not like super duper flawless or anything. Like, it does sit in my pores a little bit, it does sit in my lines a little bit. You know, it's a bit heavy, I will admit, but it doesn't look bad on my skin at all. I think it overall looks nice on my skin. Again, I may have put too much on, recurring theme with me, I just can't seem to stop. It doesn't help when I do white mix on the back of my hand and I make way too much of it, and I'm like, I want to use it because I don't want to waste it, but no, I've put too much foundation on now. Okay, let's get a bit closer to the camera. It has sat on my lines slightly. Yeah, I mean, I do overall feel like it looks pretty smooth, but is it flawless? No, it's not flawless, but it definitely looks good, yes. Anyway, gotta finish off my makeup and I'll be back. Okay, makeup is finished. I think my skin looks fine, maybe a tad bit on the cakey side. But we will see how this holds up. From my memory, it wears well. I don't think it's like, you know, L'Oreal Infallible, W7 photo shoot level, best ones we've found so far. But I think it wears pretty decently. So we'll figure that out. I'll be back in about like 8 to 9 hours. But yeah, I like it so far. Okay, so like 8 to 9 hours later, we are back, and this was the first time I've just like properly looked at it, and I have to say I'm pretty damn impressed with how this is worn. I really wasn't sure how it was going to go. I feel like I had memories of it wearing well, but I feel like throughout this series I'm kind of discovering that a lot of my preconceptions aren't necessarily what happens when I do this on camera. My forehead's looking pretty damn good, like maybe a tiny bit of texture I can notice, but part of me thinks that there was texture like at the beginning anyway, because I do feel like this is a bit of a heavy foundation generally, but I feel like there is literally like pretty much no breakage, just a tiny bit of maybe additional like texturization. But yeah, I'm actually really impressed with how it looks up there. These side bits of my face look fine. It has like kind of sunken my pores a bit, but obviously, I don't know if I've said this already, but I touch my nose a lot, so like my nose and kind of the area just sort of around it tends to always break down just because I'm rubbing my nose all the time. It's kind of related to my asthma. There is a little bit of breakage on the chin. I don't know if maybe I've been touching it or what. I did at one point splash a little bit of water on my face, but I don't remember what part of my face it was, so yeah, a little bit of breakage on my chin, so not perfect in that area, but overall I would say I'm pretty impressed with how this is worn. I don't think it's quite as good as the W7 photo shoot or the L'Oreal Infallible, but it's not far off. I think I'm going to give it an 8 for wear, so coverage I'm going to give it an 8 because I think it's pretty damn good coverage, like a low fold coverage I would describe it as. Finish is the only thing I'm really gonna like knock it on, just because I do feel like it does look a tiny bit heavy and a little bit cakey on the skin. Obviously if I put less on I think it would be better, but I do think that it's not a lightweight looking foundation for sure. I much prefer the L'Oreal one in terms of like finish, just because it looks quite lightweight and like not heavy at all on the skin. But this one has better coverage than the L'Oreal one, and I'm going to give it an 8 for wear as well because I think it wears pretty good. But I do think that this is a really good drugstore foundation. I would say it is one of my favourite drugstore foundations. I did include it in my my drugstore favourites video. So yes, I would recommend the Maybelline SuperStay foundation, and I do hope eventually that they expand the shade range because I would quite like to get a new one because this is quite old now. This does oxidize, and like I don't know, like I just could do with like a lighter shade. Have to wait and see if they expand it or not. If not, I would still rebuy it in this shade. I just have to carry on using white mixer. It's not like a deal breaker or anything, but I just really hope that they do expand it. Okay, so it's been like 2 months since I filmed anything for this video, but we're finally going to continue. So the next foundation I'm going to do is another W7 foundation. It's the W7, it's a matte made in heaven, heavenly matte foundation in buff, and it's way too dark. I used to use this a lot to like mix with things because from past experience it wore very well. However, I'm apprehensive because I said that about the Singing in the Rain, and then when I did that in part 2 it didn't wear so well. But then I did do 2 wear tests, and then the second one it wore a lot better, but I still don't feel like it wore as amazingly as I remember it wearing. And this was another one of the ones that I thought wore amazingly, so hopefully it will. I thought the W7 photo shoot that I also tried in part 2 did wear really well though, so we'll see about this. I'm going to have to put a significant amount of white mixer in this. I'm going to use the Lip and Fab white foundation. Again, I have had this for quite a long time, like about a year and a half, I would say. That's close enough. It's not a perfect shade, but it'll do. So I'm just going to apply this all over my face. It's very smooth looking. I think, as you should be able to see, it's more of a dewy, oily sort of foundation. It's fine though, once you set it down, it pretty much makes it matte. I feel like it's looking like a little bit cakey in the skin, but I may have put a bit too much on, as per usual. It's pretty smooth looking, I would say, very buttery in texture. I wouldn't say it's emphasizing my texture, but it's like certainly not minimizing it, that's for sure. But I found recently that foundations that I feel like have more coverage and are more sort of oily tend to just draw more attention to my pores generally. I feel like matte foundations don't really draw attention to my pores in the same way, so I feel like I actually do prefer the finish of a more matte, semi-matte sort of foundation, just if I'm honest. But I would say the coverage is pretty strong, like it's pretty good coverage, I would say. Like, I would say a high medium, I think is what I would go for here. High medium coverage, pretty good. It looks nice in the skin, there's no patchiness, a tiny bit cakey, a little bit oil overkill for me. But as I said, like when I mattify it, it should fix it. We'll see, we'll find out. But from my memory, it wears really well, so hopefully it does that today for me. I'll be very disappointed if it doesn't. I'll just get a little bit closer to the camera. As you see, I mean, it's like the application's very even, and there's no patchiness, but as you can see, it looks quite oily up there, so it's not gonna completely like smooth over my texture or anything like that. And my pores, my nose. I think, as you can see, because it's quite oily, it settles into the lines under my eyes quite fast, but again, I should be able to fix that with powder. So I'm just gonna finish off the rest of my makeup. Okay, so makeup is done. Yeah, I'm happy with how my base looks. I do feel like I look a little bit cakey, but I feel like overall my face looks smooth now. The powder definitely helps with like the texture. Yeah, so I guess we'll just see how this wears. If my memory is correct that it does wear really well, we will find out. Okay, so it's been just over 8 hours, I would say, that I've had it on. I would say I'm quite impressed with how it's worn. I do think it's worn pretty decently. I don't think it's quite as good as the photo shoot or the L'Oreal, but I'm pretty happy with it. So there's not a lot of breakage on my forehead, like a very small amount of texture, I would say. But I feel like it looks like not very different to when it first went on. I don't feel like it looks very different, just like a few like little bits, just like a tiny bit of texture really, but honestly, forehead in my opinion, that looks pretty good. I'm impressed with how it's held up there. I am noticing like a little bit of breakage and a little bit of texture around my chin. Nothing too severe, nothing drastic, but it has broken down a little bit in that area. I hope you can see that. Settled into this line a little bit, but not as bad as some foundations seem to settle into this line here. Outer parts of my face are fine as per usual. Yeah, I think it's held up like pretty well. Again, I do feel like this is the sort of foundation that I'd prefer to mix with things as opposed to wear by itself. Even with just white mixer, I'd still rather just mix it with like another foundation, if that makes sense, as opposed to just a white mixer. Just because I feel like on its own, it just looks a little bit cakey on the skin. That's my kind of issue with it. Like, it's a bit of a heavy looking foundation. But in terms of coverage, I think I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 because I do think it's pretty decent coverage. I'd describe it as a high medium coverage, definitely. Like, coverage is good. Can't really fault it. It's not full coverage obviously, but it's pretty good. Finish, I think I'm going to have to give it a 6, maybe 6.5. It's because it's a bit heavy and it's a bit cakey on the skin. It's not the most like skin-like sort of foundation, if you get what I mean. But I mean, I do feel like it looks smooth, you know, it's quite buttery. It's nice enough, there's no patchiness, there's no issues with that in terms of finish. It's just, I'm knocking some points off it because I feel like it's a bit heavy and cakey looking on the skin. And also because it's just a little bit too oily for my liking. Where I think I'm just going to give it a solid 8 out of 10 just because I wouldn't put it on the level of the photo shoot or the L'Oreal, which I gave a 9. But I feel like it's pretty close to them, so I'm going to give it an 8 because I do think that this is a pretty good wearing foundation. I can't really knock too much off it for that, other than like a tiny bit of texture, but nothing major compared to the majority of foundations. Right, the next foundation I'm going to do is another W7 one. Okay, so the next foundation that we are going to do is the W7 HD foundation. This is in the shade Bath. I do know that they did recently add some more shades for this foundation. It's still not like a really amazing inclusive shade range, but like they added something. I guess that's good. I feel like if I were to buy another one, I probably would be able to get a shade that's a bit closer to my skin tone. With this, I do need a little bit of white mixer. It's the only one that they've expanded the shade range of, so that makes me think it's probably like their best seller or something. But anyway, it's been a while since I've used this, so I'm gonna add a little bit of my Nip and Fab white foundation. Let's smother this on my face. Again, it's got that really sort of oily finish that all of the W7 foundations seem to have. Even the one that's called It's a Matte Made in Heaven. Like, no, it is not matte. I feel like this one looks a little bit fresher and a little bit more natural than the other ones that I've used. The coverage isn't... The coverage I would say is like a solid medium. It's nothing amazing. I would say that the Matte Made in Heaven one was a little bit better coverage. It's just very oily looking. And that's all I really see when I look at it is oils. But I feel like this one looks a little bit more natural than the others. Like, I can just see like all of my pores. As I said, when a foundation is quite oily, I feel like the first thing I notice is just my pores. I feel like it kind of draws attention to them, like all the oils. But you know, setting it down does help. Just gonna get closer to my skin. I think it looks pretty smooth up there. I'm just noticing like the real oiliness. That's all I really see, but there's nothing patchy going on. Settled into my forehead lines a little bit, but nothing major. I just don't know if you can like see, but I just feel like oils just draw attention to my pores. But I mean, it looks like pretty decent. There's nothing really wrong with it. Like, it overall looks like pretty like smooth on my skin, very fresh looking. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish off the rest of my makeup. Okay, full face and makeup is done. I use the W7 Setup Powder. I use the e.l.f. Camo Concealer under my eyes and eyelids. Born this way around my mouth and on my nose. Forehead is clearer concealer. Good place to check for wear. I'm going to go about my day. It might be a bit of a sweaty one because there's a lot of delivery to work from last night. But I only got so many days that I can film one, so you know. I'll be back in about 8 to 9 hours, probably 9, I don't know, I've not done this maths yet. About 9 hours I think, and we'll see how this is holding up on my face. Okay, so I think it's been probably a little bit over 9 hours. Not gonna lie, it's just been one of those shifts at work where sweat has been made, there's just a lot going on. And I've treated myself to a nice 20 hot wings bucket from KFC. It's been that kind of stressful. So yeah, it definitely has had some, you know, some conditions to work with today. There's only just like smudges on my face, and that's obviously not the foundation. That's just because I've gotten dirt on my face, because that happens when you work in retail. I'm looking at it and I think it has worn like pretty good, but not perfectly. But then I am also bearing in mind that I've sweated more than some of the wear tests. I feel like it's worn pretty similarly to the It's a Matte Made in Heaven one. I feel like they're around the same really. So I'll get close to my forehead. Again, like, it's really not broken down very badly. Like, I'm not seeing a lot of breakage, to be honest. There's just a little bit of texture, but I would consider that pretty decent forehead wear. I think really a small amount of, not really any breakage, just a bit of texture. What do you think? I'm pretty impressed with that, considering what it's had to contend with. I think that's fine. I feel like it has started to break down and like kind of texturize quite badly on my chin. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's that, you know. Outer parts of my face are pretty decent, as per usual. It's rubbed off my nose and around these pore bits here, but that is, I think, from my nose touching. I think it does wear pretty well, but it's not like the photo shoot or the L'Oreal Infallible for me. It's just not quite at that level, but I do think it wears like pretty well. There's only really like a couple things I can point out, and considering that my skin just like repels foundation, I'm like quite impressed, I would say. So for coverage, I think I'm gonna give it a 6, just because I feel like it was a little bit less than the It's a Matte Made in Heaven one. But I mean, like, it's a solid medium coverage, so I'm just gonna give it a 6. And for finish, I think I'll give it a 6.5, I feel like I think it's a little bit less cakey and a little bit fresher looking than the It's a Matte Made in Heaven. So I think I'm going to give this one a 6.5 and then the It's a Matte Made in Heaven one a 6. And the wear, I feel like I should just give it an 8 like I did with the It's a Matte Made in Heaven one, because it's pretty good. I mean, I think if I hadn't sweated as much today, it would have worn a little bit better, I think. So I am bearing that in mind. But I think it holds up pretty good. There is just a little... The only real issue I'm noticing is like the breakage on my chin. But honestly, that could have just been me like wiping my chin against something. Like, who bloody knows? It's not perfect going foundation, but I do think it's pretty decent. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So that's my final thoughts on the W7 HD foundation. It's not really that much dissimilar to It's a Matte Made in Heaven or the Singing in the Rain one. They're both like... They're all quite like sort of oily, they've got a very similar finish. The only thing I'll notice, this one's like a tiny bit less cakey. Whether or not I'm going to declutter these, I'm not 100% sure at the moment. I feel like with the W7 ones, I don't really need to keep all of them. Like I might, depending on how the other ones I've still got left wear, I might just keep like a couple. Like, so I definitely want to keep the photo shoot because that one's wear impressed me the most. So I'm definitely going to keep that one. But as for these and the Singing in the Rain, I'm just going to keep those kind of up in the air for now. I feel like once I've kind of reviewed all the foundations, I'm going to do like a bit more of a brutal declutter after I've reviewed everything. That is my thoughts on the W7 HD foundation. So the next foundation we're going to do is the New Look No Shine Mattifying Foundation, which I'm pretty sure New Look has like discontinued their makeup, I think anyway. I don't know, I've not actually looked in a store like for a while, but I know online when I last looked, like pretty much all the makeup was gone, so. But nonetheless, it's in my collection, so I'm going to review it anyway. I bought this probably like about 3 years ago, so it's definitely past its best. But I do remember that I used to actually quite like it when I first had it, but I've not picked it up in a long time. So the shade is Porcelain. I remember it being a pretty good shade match as well, but I mean, obviously, I feel like as expected, I know they didn't have a good shade range. Obviously, I can't check it because I'm pretty sure they're discontinued, but there definitely wasn't a lot to choose from. Wow, look how gross. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of looks like it's separated. The pump's being really dodgy, so. I mean, it is pale, but looking at it now, it looks a little bit too pink toned. Obviously, like when I first used this, I probably didn't even understand undertones remotely, so I was like, yeah, this is a great shade match. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not expecting a lot from this just because it's been in my collection so long. So, we'll see. I feel like it's probably, like, not in, obviously it's not in its prime, so I'm not reviewing it on, like, what it would be like if you literally just recently bought it. But I can't recently buy it because it's discontinued, so. Why is there like toothpaste on my neck? What the fuck is going on? It's pale, but like it's just way too like cool and pink for me. Hence why I'm blending it down my neck a bit. It's a lot light coverage than I remember it being. It's not light coverage though, it's like I'd say like a low medium is how I'd describe it. And it's quite matte actually. Although it is called a no shine foundation, so I feel like the implication would be that it's matte. There's like a tiny bit of dew coming through, it's not like completely flat matte or anything like that. As I said, I've had this in my collection a long time. It probably performs better when it's in its prime, but I mean, the whole point of this video is I'm just going to review all of the foundations in my collection, so I thought I'd give it a go. And it doesn't really matter what I say about it because you can't buy it anymore anyway, as far as I'm aware. I need to look in a New Look store at some point soon just to see if there actually is any makeup left, because I actually really like. They used to have a lot of really good products, you know, like the highlighter, they had a bronzer that was really nice, and I'm pretty sure my sister nicked the bronzer. Their eyebrow gel was really good. I really like their eyebrow gels because I struggle to find eyebrow gels that work for me. But I really like the New Look eyebrow gel. It's still in my collection actually. I think I bought that at some point last year. So they did have the makeup like late last year because I think it was around Christmas time last year. It's about a year ago actually. It's almost Christmas. I don't know what you think. I mean, it's looking a little bit cakey, a little bit heavy in the skin. It's not like a super flawless finish. The coverage, as I said, it describes like a low medium sort of coverage. And it's got like a mostly matte finish, but a tiny bit of dewiness coming through, which is fine. That's kind of what I like, you know. Matte, but with like a little bit of, you know, natural skin coming through, if that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't look great, I'm not gonna lie. I would happily leave the house with it on. I think with some concealer and some powder, it will really help it. But with that in mind, I'm gonna go finish off the rest of my makeup. Okay, the rest of my makeup is done. Yeah, I mean, my skin looks, it looks okay, it's fine. I feel like it looks a bit dry and a little bit cakey looking, but it's fine. You know, shade's a little bit different. Yeah, I'll be back later to see how this is worn. Okay, so I've had this on my face for about 8 hours, I would say, maybe a tiny bit under that. I thought this was gonna look like a hot damn mess, but that's actually not too bad, you know. My forehead, I feel like there's really not a lot of breakage, just a bit of texture, a bit of line sinkage, but I feel like the line sinkage was kind of already there in the first place. Outer parts, fine. Going in close to my pores, there's definitely quite a bit of wear. A little bit of, you know, breakage and stuff. Obviously ignoring the nose. A little bit of texture on the chin, but it's not actually broken down that much on my chin. Just a bit of texture. So, yeah, I'm actually quite pleasantly surprised with how that's worn, considering that it's pretty old. Regardless of the fact that it's worn not bad, I'm still gonna get rid of it just because it's been in my collection for way too long. I didn't love the finish. It wasn't terrible or anything. It was definitely the sort of thing where it was probably a lot nicer looking on the skin. Like if I had it on like 2 years ago or something. Just the undertones are a little bit off, and also the fact that it's just discontinued makes me want to get rid of it, because if I were to use it like on my channel, I wouldn't be able to recommend it to anyone because they can't buy it. So I am going to get rid of this one, but I mean, it's fine. Like, I feel like it's worn well. The coverage, I would say like low medium, so I'd give it like, I'm trying to remember what my scale was, a 5 or a 6, so like a 5.5 for coverage. Finish, I'll give it a 6 maybe. It wasn't too bad, it didn't look terrible or anything on the skin. I just noticed like a little bit of dryness and a little bit of cakiness, so I think I'd just give it a 6 out of 10. And for wear, I'm gonna give it like a 7, I think. Yeah, I think I'll give it a 7, like, honestly, not too bad, maybe even a 7.5, I will decide when I edit. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it in its current condition anyway, but I reckon this was probably a lot better foundation when I first bought it. But because it's so old, I am going to get rid of it. But we did have some good times in the past. So I know that was kind of a pointless review because it's a discontinued product. Nonetheless, I thought I would just share thoughts on it anyway. So the next foundation we're going to be reviewing is the Essence Insta Perfect Liquid Makeup in the shade 10. This little diddly bopper. I bought earlier this year in like January or February. My memory of it was quite light coverage. But I think it had a decent finish. Let's not reminisce, let's get it on the face. I think the colour is, I know it's pale, but I don't know what the undertones are like. Ew, there's some like, ew. What is this? That's just how it's come out. It's like all separated and gross, and it's like watery. What's happened there? Well, I've just squirted a load of excess out, so hopefully it goes back to normal. I don't know if it was always like really watery. I can't actually remember. I think it kind of probably was. Yeah, the colour's fine. Yeah, that shade's fine. Don't need to white mix it or anything. Alright, let's get this on. What do we think? It's like, it's obviously quite pale, but like the undertones are a little bit like different. So like my neck and my face don't look the same, but I can like get away with the colour, it's fine. It's very dewy looking, definitely. I would say it's light coverage, like high light coverage, low medium coverage sort of thing. Like I can still see like my blemishes coming through on the side of my face. Quite a bit, but that's fine. I'll add some concealer. Yeah, it's very dewy. As I said before, like the more dewy, oily foundations, they do draw more attention to my pores, which I mean, it kind of is. It doesn't look like really bad or anything, but you could certainly, like, I feel like my pores are slightly emphasized. Looks alright. I mean, it looks alright. I feel like, even though it's light coverage, I still feel like it has a little bit of a sort of cakey look to it. Do you think it does? Like, it's quite fresh looking, but I still feel like it's quite foundation-y, despite the fact that it doesn't have the best coverage. Like, I don't feel like it looks, like, flawless on the skin. I don't know. What do you think? It looks fine, it's acceptable, but I'm just not mad about it. Bear in mind, it is a very cheap foundation. With that in mind, I'm gonna finish off the rest of my makeup. Okay, makeup is done. I mean, I think it looks fine. I used the Milani concealer and the W7 Set It Up powder. I'm gonna be back in God knows how long, like probably about 8 hours. And we'll see how this has held up on my face. What it's looking like, because I don't really have much of a memory about how this one wore, so we'll find that out today. So we're back 8 hours later. Looking at it, I would actually say it's worn not too badly. It's not perfect, definitely not, but it's definitely worn better than I expected it to. So I just look close to my forehead. I am noticing quite a bit of texture on my forehead. Hopefully you can see this on camera. There's quite a lot of texture bumps, but there's not a lot of breakage actually, which has impressed me quite a bit. The breakage is pretty minimal. It's just like a bit of texture that I am noticing. So it doesn't look perfect, but certainly pretty decent. Like, I feel like it hasn't broken down too much. All parts of my face look fine. Obviously worn off around my nose and like just my pore area, because I've been touching there. A bit of texture, a little bit of breakage on the chin, but nothing major. Overall, like, I am actually pretty impressed. I feel like it's actually held up a lot better than I was expecting it to. I mean, it's not perfect. There is some texture that I'm noticing on my face, but honestly, this wore a lot better than I thought it was going to. Give it like a 7 out of 10 for wear, because there are definitely like better ones I've found, but I feel like I can't knock it too much. So 7.5 out of 10 for wear, I would say. Coverage, I'm gonna have to give it like the low, medium or high light coverage. So I can't remember what my little scale was, but that's either a 5 or a 6. Finish, I think I'd give it like a 6 for finish, maybe 6.5. It doesn't look too bad, it's pretty fresh, but like, I do feel like, even though it's quite light coverage, I do feel like it looks slightly cakey and slightly foundation-y in the skin. And obviously, as I've said, because it is a more oily formula, it does draw attention to my pores. I am leaning towards maybe getting rid of this, just because I feel like it's just a very average foundation. There's nothing that particularly special about this. The thing that I feel like I liked about it the most was the wear. I thought the wear was pretty good, but the coverage is just a bit lighter than what I would normally go for. And the finish just isn't my favourite. I certainly don't think this is a bad foundation or anything, and like, it's pretty cheap, so give it a go if you want to. I've just realised in here that it says strong matte effect. It's not a strong matte effect. It definitely looks more dewy than it does matte on my skin anyway, so interesting name. It's like the W7, it's a matte made in heaven. That's not matte. Why are you claiming to be matte? You are not matte. So the next foundation I'm going to be reviewing, sorry, I'm getting a cold as you can tell, the EX1 Invisiwear liquid foundation, which I bought at some point last year, I think. As you can see from the bottle, I've not really used a lot of it. I don't know why, so I'm really interested to revisit this and see if I actually like it. I know, I definitely remember that I liked it, but obviously I've not read through it a lot, so I want to find out why, if there's a reason, or if I'm just forgetting that it exists or something. So the shade is 1.0. I think the colour's alright on its own. Guess we'll find out. It's quite a like thick formula, it's not watery at all. I'm starting to think that maybe I would need white mixer with that. Let's blend it in. I probably could use white mixer with that actually, but I've started putting it on now, so yeah, we'll just deal with it. I do actually think it looks really nice on the skin. It's very like fresh and natural looking, like it doesn't look like I've just caked a foundation on my face. It has got quite a bit of dew to it, so I would say like semi-matte finish, but leaning a little bit dewy, but not like super dewy, which is really nice actually. I wouldn't say the coverage is particularly great, like I'd say like it's a low medium sort of coverage, but you know, that's fine with some concealer. But for first impressions, I actually like it. I just feel like it looks quite lightweight in the skin. It's not really drawing too much attention to my pores or my texture, ever so slightly, because like it's impossible not to, but not a lot. It looks really nice. It looks pretty smooth up there, my forehead. I actually think it looks really nice. I'm actually quite happy with the finish of that. As I said, I would prefer more coverage, but I mean, I can fix it with concealer and stuff, but I think it's nice. I feel like it's a good summer sort of foundation because it has got a bit of dew coming through, but then it's not like oil overkill or anything. And it's not like so dewy that it's like making my texture look really bad, as I find like the more oily formulaed foundations tend to do. So far I'm liking it, and I think the colour is a tiny bit dark, but once it kind of blends into your skin, it's okay. I'll just see what I can do to fix that. But so far I'm actually quite liking it, and I'm glad that I've retried it. And I think maybe I should start using it more, although if it wears like shit, then that is going to be a problem. But I'm going to finish off my makeup now. Okay, so I've done the rest of my makeup, and I have to say I am really liking how my skin's looking. I feel like it looks natural and lightweight, but you know, good. I used the e.l.f. camo concealer under my eyes and on my eyelids, and I used a bit of the Too Faced Born This Way concealer just on my blemishes and on my nose, and then W7 Set It Up powder. And I think that finished it off very nicely. The only thing that I will say is that there are, when I was kind of setting it with powder, like the lines on my forehead, it did kind of settle into a bit, if you can kind of see there. So I think maybe I needed to tap that out before I set it. That could be my own fault. I don't know, just something to note. But I do really like how it's looking. I feel like my skin just looks quite healthy and nice. So I'm going to see how this wears. I'm hoping it wears well because I am impressed with it so far. So I'll be back in like 8 to 9 hours and we'll see. Okay, so it's been a little over 9 hours. It's been a long ass day. I've sweated quite a lot today, so it's had some stuff to contend with. And I think considering it has held up pretty well, it's not perfect, but considering how much I've sweat today, I can literally still feel sweat on me now. My highlighter has also lasted really well, which is something I will note when I do my updated makeup review for November. So my forehead, I feel like there's a little bit of breakage just right between my brows, if you can see that. But I feel like the rest of it, like at the top, a very small amount of texture. But I actually feel like it's held up pretty decently up there, considering I have been sweating quite a bit. Like, that's impressed me. It's just right between my brows where there is a little bit of wearing off, and also like sinking into these little lines a bit here. I think it does look pretty decent up there, not bad. I have obviously been rubbing my nose a lot and these kind of bits around it because I am starting to get cold now. I know I rub my nose even when I don't have a cold, but especially today. My chin does look pretty bad actually, looking at it. Yeah, the chin wear, not so great. I'm just trying to think, have I been touching my chin a lot today? I don't feel like I've been touching it any more than I normally would, but the chin doesn't look good. Let me actually show you it. It's quite a lot of breakage there. Not good chin wear in my opinion. Not the best. No. I must have been touching it a lot today or something because I feel like that looks really bad. But my forehead looks decent. These outer parts of my face look pretty much the same as when I put them on. I think, right, see, I think the forehead's good other than just between the brows. Chin is a bit of a disaster. So I'm like a bit torn on what to rate this really, because I think it's good wear. If it was a day where I was sweating less, this would probably look a lot nicer in my opinion. So I think I might give it either a 6.5 or a 7 possibly. I think I'll just watch back the footage and see what it looks like on camera and compare it to the other wear tests that I've done and see. But I'm either giving it a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10 for wear, because in my opinion it's good. It's a lot better than some foundations, but I don't feel like it's quite up there with the really good ones that I found. So for coverage, I think I'll have to give it like a 6 out of 10 for coverage, whatever the low medium coverage one was on my little scale. I'll figure that out when I'm editing, but probably a 6 out of 10 for coverage. For finish, I think I'd give it like an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5, because I generally do think it looks really nice on the skin. It's just really lightweight and it just doesn't look foundation-y, which I do find pretty hard to find with foundations. The only kind of downside is the more sort of skin-like ones do tend to have less coverage, but for me it's kind of fine. I just overcompensate with concealer. But I think for finish I'd give it like an 8.5. I think it actually looks really nice on the skin. So I do think this is a decent foundation and I do want to use it a bit more. I definitely don't want to declutter it. I do want to keep this in my collection. I would like to try mixing it with some things maybe. The next foundation that we are going to be reviewing is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus foundation, which I like quite a lot, but it has been a while since I've used it, so we will see how it performs today. It is in the shade Soft Ivory. I think they probably do have some lighter shades than Soft Ivory. I don't know whether they're on Beauty Bay, because I think when Wet n Wild came to Beauty Bay for the first time, I don't think they had the full shade range, but either way I think Wet n Wild is a bit limited generally with their shade ranges. It isn't like the perfect colour, but see, I don't know if I should mix that or not, because I mean it's kind of, I don't know, should I mix it? So I'm just gonna get a load of the back of my hand with a spatula, and I'm gonna put a bit of my Nip and Fab white mixer in. It's quite light, but I can just see it sort of looking a bit orangey. So I know a lot of people complain about the smell of this. What I find funny is it smells exactly the same as the MAC Studio Fix Fluid Foundation. No one ever talks about how the MAC Studio Fix Fluid Foundation smells like paint. But everyone talks about how the Wet n Wild one smells like paint. So why are you being biased? I don't know. I feel like this is kind of like a dupe for that MAC foundation though, which will be reviewed at some point in this series, because I do enjoy the MAC one as well. It's not perfect, but close enough. I don't want to put like too much white mixer in it, because we want to test the actual formula of it today. From my memory, this has got really good coverage, and it's like really buildable coverage as well. Okay, so the amount that I've put on my hand, I feel like it's giving me like a solid medium / high medium coverage. My memory though, it can be built up to full. I'm just gonna put a tiny bit more on. I don't want to put too much more. I don't want it to cake. Okay, yeah, I still feel like it's not full coverage, but it is really good coverage. Like I would say a high medium after building it up. I say it has got more of a matte finish than it does a dewy finish. It's not like completely like flat matte. I can still see like a bit of the like natural dew that I have on my skin coming through, but I'd say it's more matte than it is dewy, which I mean that's fine, because I feel like I do actually prefer a more matte finish. It looks really smooth on the face, like it's pretty good actually. I mean, yeah, I think it's a tad like, I wouldn't say it's super heavy or anything, but it's definitely not like natural looking, if you get what I mean. Like I don't look at it and think cake face or anything, but I don't feel like it's the most natural finish, if you get what I mean. But I do overall really like how it's looking, so let me just get closer. I feel like my forehead looks pretty good. Again, the only thing I'll point out is maybe it's a tiny bit heavy looking up there. But overall I feel like it looks pretty smooth, everything looks covered. It's not drawing too much attention to, like my pores. Slightly, but not too much at all. I feel like, again, like the more dewy foundations tend to draw more attention than what this is. And like I still can see like my little blemishes here just poking through a little bit, so it isn't like full coverage. Yeah, I think it looks nice on the skin. I do quite like it. my opinion hasn't changed. I do still like how this looks, definitely. Overall, I'm liking how it's looking. I feel like it's not super drying. I've seen a lot of people claim that this foundation is quite drying on like the Beauty Guru Chatter subreddit. Like, it's just a very divisive foundation. A lot of people love it. A lot of people think it's really overrated and don't like it. So, very divisive foundation. I don't feel like it's like looking really dry. I don't feel like it's settling weirdly or anything like that on my skin anyway. I feel like it's like kind of just my ideal finish, really. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go finish off the rest of my makeup and see how it looks after that. Alright, makeup is done. I use a little bit of e.l.f. concealer in my eye area and a tiny bit of Too Faced just around my blemishes, and the W7 Set It Up powder. And I do think my skin looks pretty good, like it looks pretty flawless, but again, the only thing I will comment on is that it's kind of like, it's a noticeable foundation-like appearance, if you get what I mean. Like, it's not like the most seamless sort of natural looking thing on the face. It's like a tiny bit heavy looking. I felt the same sort of way about the Maybelline SuperStay though as well, in that great coverage. Found that it wore pretty well as well. The only kind of thing I can criticise it for is that it does look a bit cakey. It's not second skin like, it is foundation-y looking. And I kind of feel the same way about this one. From my memory, this does wear pretty well. We'll find out today if that is the case. Okay, so we have now had this on for 8 hours. So I think my forehead looks really good. Very little breakage there. Quite impressed with that. Maybe a tiny bit of like texture. Like, it doesn't look exactly like it looked when I first put it on, but it looks pretty damn close to how it looked. Like, it's worn really well up there. Outer parts of my face look really good still. Counting my nose, my upper lip area, because that's gone to shit because I've had to blow my nose. There is a bit of breakage on my chin. It has worn off around my mouth, but I think that's because I was eating some hot wings and I just feel like hot wings could be a little bit messy, so I have got a bit of wear around like my mouth, so I'm not gonna blame that on the foundation. I'm gonna blame that on me, but there is a bit of breakage on my chin. It doesn't look great there, but again, I don't know how much of that is me like rubbing it a little bit, because I feel like I have rubbed it a little bit today, but it doesn't look perfect there. And it has also sunk into this line at the side of my mouth. But I think in the areas where I've not like interfered with it at all, I think it looks pretty good. Like, I feel like it's held up pretty well. It looked even better like an hour ago, actually, when I looked in the bathroom mirror. I thought my forehead looked like flawless. Now it's like pretty close to flawless, but it's just feel like it's worn a tiny bit in that last hour that I've had it on. Overall, I feel like I'm pretty impressed with how it wears. I think it is a good wearing foundation. If you don't touch your nose and eat really messily like me, it's probably gonna look even better. I think I'm like gonna give it like a 7 or a 7.5 for wear, just because it isn't the best I've found from this series, but I do feel like it's pretty good. I can't really knock it too much. So for coverage, I think I will give it a 7 out of 10, because I think it's like a high medium coverage. I don't feel like it quite gets to the full coverage side of it, so I don't think I'll give it an 8, but I'm going to give it either a 7 or a 7.5, because I think it has got really good coverage. It's just not full coverage, but for my preferences, coverage is great in my opinion. Finished, I think I'm tempted to give it a 7, just because I do feel like when I looked at it after I put it on in different lightings, I felt like it looked quite airbrushed and sort of flawless looking. So I feel like I'll give it a 7, but I am going to knock the 3 points off, just because, as I said, it's not like a second skin looking foundation. It's obvious as a foundation on. It's not lightweight, and you know, I do prefer a finish to look a little bit more lightweight, if I'm honest. But then the fact that it looked so smooth, it looked even, it looked kind of airbrushed, like the finish was really nice if I'm discounting the heaviness. So I feel like for that reason I will give it a 7. I do think overall it's a pretty decent foundation. I can understand why people wouldn't like it. I can sort of see how some people wouldn't like the kind of the finish of it. Like, some people would find it too heavy. I could see that. And also, like, it is a bit more matte than it is dewy, but I personally don't think it looks dry. But I mean, maybe on a certain skin type it would go quite dry. I could see that possibly happening, but on me I don't feel like it's dry. For reference, I don't know if I've said in this video, but my skin is more normal combination. It leans more dry than it does oily, but it's not particularly dry either. Now that it's winter, it is a little bit more drier than usual, I guess, but again, I don't feel like it looks dry on me at all. For that reason, I would put it as one of my favourite drugstore foundations. I do think that it falls into that category. Okay, so the next foundation that we're doing, another W7 one. I swear they will end eventually. So this is the W7 Genius Feather Light Foundation. I'm assuming it's in buff because they all tend to be. Yes, it is. I think this is the second last one. I think I still need to do the Face Fantasy. So obviously this is the Feather Light Foundation. So from my memory, this is a tiny bit lighter coverage. I don't think it's like light coverage though. I think it's like medium, but it's a bit lighter coverage than the other ones. I think I may need a bit of white mix with it. This shade isn't too off, like it's in the right sort of area, but it's still like a little bit orangey. That's what the colours are like, just a reference. If I put any more white mixer in, that's going to fall off my hand because it's so watery. It does have like a quite like smooth velvety sort of texture, which is quite nice, just like as I'm blending it in. That actually blends into the skin like so seamlessly. It's got a really nice texture to it. I wouldn't actually say it is light coverage. I think it's actually got some pretty decent coverage. I'd say like solid medium coverage. Like I wouldn't go as far to say high medium, but just like a solid medium sort of coverage. It's covered really well. I think it looks really smooth on the face. Like the other W7 ones, it is more of a dewy foundation. I feel like maybe slightly less dewy than some of the others, but it's still pretty dewy, I would say. But I do feel like it looks pretty smooth. I don't feel like it draws as much attention to the texture as some of the other W7 ones. Like, it's not perfect because, as I've said, the dewier it is, it does tend to draw attention to it. But I don't feel like it really does it that much, considering it is more dewy. I feel like it just overall looks really sort of smooth on the face. Right, let me give you a close-up. That's how it looks on the forehead. I feel like it looks pretty smooth up there. It's not, again, I mean like, it feels quite lightweight, but I wouldn't say it looks super lightweight. Like, I feel like, yeah, it looks like foundation, if you know what I mean. It's not, I don't feel like it looks super lightweight, but it does feel really lightweight. Also up here, I don't feel like it emphasises my pores too much. I mean, it's not perfect, obviously. Nothing is. I don't feel like it's drawing too much attention to them, considering how dewy it is. I actually think it looks quite nice on the skin. Gonna finish off the rest of my makeup now. Okay, done the rest of my makeup. e.l.f. concealer, used a bit of the NARS Soft Matte Complete concealer, just around my mouth and on my nose, and W7 Set It Up setting powder. I actually think it looks pretty nice. I'm happy with the foundation so far. So we'll see how it wears. Obviously it's a W7 foundation, they tend to wear pretty good, but we'll see how this one goes. So I'll be back in like 8-9 hours to see how's this held up. Okay, so it's just been a little under 9 hours. I have sweated today. It's definitely not been a relaxed shift. Why is my cat meowing outside my door? I think the forehead has held up pretty damn good. I'm quite impressed with that. Just like a tiny little bit of texture just between my brows, if you can kind of see that there. But like the rest of my forehead I think looks really good, like not too dissimilar to how it looked when I first applied it. That's quite impressed me actually. Like that is literally just a bit between the brows. If I kind of cut it off there, I would say that looks pretty immaculate, to be honest. Quite impressed with that. Again, these outer parts of my face still look as if I've just applied them. Again, I've had to blow my nose a lot today, so this whole area here has just gone to shit. And there is a little bit of texture and breakage on my chin, but not the worst. I don't think it's too bad, but there definitely is some breakage, as you can see. So again, another W7 foundation that wears pretty well. I would say I'm quite impressed with that. I think I'm probably gonna give it an 8 out of 10 for wear because I am pretty impressed. I'm literally just knocking the 2 points off because of a bit of breakage around my chin and a tiny bit between my brows. I think I will keep this one. I'm thinking of maybe getting rid of the Matte Made in Heaven, the HD, and the see in the rain, and then maybe keeping this one, the photo shoot, and the face fantasy. Obviously I've not reviewed the face fantasy yet. I think that's the last one from the W7 ones I'll review. So I'm thinking I'll get rid of the 3 I just mentioned, keep this one, keep the photo shoot, and keep the face fantasy. Unless the face fantasy really disappoints me when I review it, then I'll just keep the 2. But I do think this is a nice foundation. Again, very limited shade range, not everyone's going to be able to find a shade. If you can find something close to you, I would say give it a go. It is described as a feather light foundation. I don't feel like it looks super heavy or cakey, but I certainly don't think it looks lightweight in the skin. Like, it's slightly foundation-y, like you can definitely tell there's foundation on, but I will say the texture does feel kind of velvety, and it does feel quite lightweight, the texture of it. It doesn't feel heavy, but I wouldn't say it looks lightweight. So for coverage, I think I'm gonna have to give it like a 6 or a 6.5, solid medium coverage, I'd say. Finish, I think I'll give it like, I did actually quite like the finish. It wasn't perfect, but I liked it quite a lot, so I'm thinking I'll give it a 7. And then for wear, I'm gonna give it an 8, so 6, 7, 8 basically. So I think it's decent. I'm gonna keep it in my makeup collection for now. So the next and the last foundation I'm going to review for this video is the Maybelline Dream Urban Cover Full Coverage Lightweight Protective Makeup in the shade 100 Warm Ivory. It's a pretty good shade match. I don't think I need to mix it. I do have a review of this up on my channel. We'll put a little card up there. Filmed it earlier in the year. It's quite a newer foundation to my collection, and I do quite like it. It's not perfect, I like it, and I do feel like it is more of a summer sort of foundation, and it's also, I would consider it a dupe for the It Cosmetics one, which I have got on my collection and will be reviewed in either part 4 or 5. I've also got some lovely pink eyeshadow stains on my eyes today. Yeah, it's a pretty good colour match. It's obviously warm ivory, so it's more of a yellowy tone. It's not spot on, but it's like close enough to the point where I don't have to mix it. Yeah, it's just a very like summer foundation, quite lightweight, but the coverage isn't actually too bad. It's not full coverage obviously, but it's like a decent coverage. As you can see, it is a very dewy foundation. It's like, I wouldn't say it's oil overkill or anything, but it's quite dewy, which is, again, is one of the reasons why I see it as more of like a summer sort of foundation. It does feel really lightweight. It's got pretty decent coverage as well. Like, it's not full coverage, but just because I can still see like a little bit of my blemishes on my face coming through. But I would say like a solid medium coverage is how I would describe it, just solid medium. And as I've been saying, it's dewy, so it's not gonna like smooth over my pores or anything, but I don't feel like it draws too much attention to them. But I mean, it's not perfect like a more matte foundation would, like minimize them and blur them out a little bit more. Anyway, we'll get close to the skin. Looks fine up there, I would say. Pretty smooth, pretty even application. You can see it sitting my lines a bit, but you know, I'm getting older, it happens. And yeah, you can really just see like that dewiness, can't you? But I feel like it sits perfectly fine on the skin, there's no patchiness. I think it's like a nice natural looking foundation, but it's still got some coverage to it, which is nice. So I'm gonna go finish off the rest of my makeup. Okay, rest of the makeup is done. Elf concealer under my eyes, Too Faced around my face, and W7 Set It Up powder. I actually think my skin's looking really nice and like quite flawless actually. I think it looks nice. It doesn't look like a cake face. So I have already done like 2 wear tests for this on my channel. I did one in my one of my updated makeup reviews, and then obviously in the original foundation review I did a wear test, but being honest with you, I actually cannot for the life of me remember how this wears. I feel like it's either like average wearing or maybe not so great. I can't remember, but we're gonna find out today how this holds up after about 9 hours. So I will see you then. Okay, so it's been about 9 hours. I had to put my dressing gown on because I was freezing. So let's get a look at this guy. I don't think it looks too bad. I would say it's like above average wear, definitely. So let's just look at my forehead. I feel like I'm noticing like some texture bumps, so I wouldn't say it's looking perfect up there. But I mean, for the most part, it's pretty decent. Like, it's not broken down very badly, which hopefully you'll see. I'm just noticing like a little bit of texture, like kind of this bit here. I have no idea if you'll be able to see that. To help with it focused. You want to focus? Yeah, just sort of in this area. I don't know if you can see it on camera. But just a few little texture bumps, and there's a little bit of breakage between my brows. It's not too bad though. I feel like overall it looks decent up there, but it's not the best I've found. Like, even in this video, I feel like I found some ones that were a bit better in the forehead. But I wouldn't say it's like that far off from the good ones. I still think it's like not bad. I feel like these outer parts of my face, even coming in quite close to the pores, not bad. Although I am just looking at my under eye, and my under eye looks really weird on that side. Like, it's gone all scaly. Can you see that? I don't know if that's the powder or concealer or what, although it's my e.l.f. concealer, which I use all the time, and it never normally does that. It's the same powders I normally use. That's really weird. Why is it gone all scaly just in my inner corner there? Yeah, it's done it on both sides. It's kind of done it over here as well a bit. It's weird because I feel like I don't know, that also could be maybe my eyeshadow stains, I don't know. Although I feel like it's not in that area. I mean, I use that powder and concealer all the time, and I've never noticed it doing that on my under eyes, so that's making me think maybe that's the foundation wearing a bit weird. I've got quite a bit of breakage on my chin. It's not looking great there. It's like kind of broken down in some areas, and it's quite textured, but not the worst. These outer parts of my face look absolutely fine. They look like there's barely any wear on them, really. Overall, it's pretty decent, but it's just not the best wearing one I've found. I feel like I would probably give it like a 7 out of 10 overall, just because, I mean, it's pretty good, but it's not extraordinary. For coverage, I'm gonna give it a 6.5, I think I'll give it a 6 or a 6.5. For finish, I think I'll give it a 7. There's a little bit of texture emphasis. It's not perfect, but I do really like the freshness, the naturalness. It doesn't feel too cakey or too heavy, and overall I feel like it looks pretty smooth on the skin. And when I first like kind of put it on and finished the rest of my makeup, I felt like it looked quite flawless on the face. Yeah, it can stay for now. I'll keep it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on another 10 foundations. I will insert my little leaderboard thing after I'm speaking. I'll do all the ones in this video, and then I'll do an overall of the other 20, I think it is, that I've reviewed. And I've got 2 more parts left, another, I think, 10 in each video. And then that will be it. And then I'll just, probably in the last part, I'll just re-go through the foundations and like get rid of more after reviewing them. Basically, I'll just do like a proper declutter and kind of have a finished, this is my complete foundation collection. That's all for part 3. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.